Alright, so I've got episode 2 here of Ray Donovan, this one entitled Las Vegas. First off, I want to give you guys a quick apology if I didn't do the Ray Donovan vlog Sunday. As you guys saw, I was gone for Baltimore, Maryland to go and celebrate my 21st birthday there at BronyCon, but also to another extent, I am currently working on the BronyCon vlogs. I slowly am starting it, but I still need to get some certain materials on my page, or at least the materials I need in order to finish it. It's just the scrappings, but it's still something. Also, if you want a quick thought on what I thought about the new MLP episode, surprisingly a good one, and it kind of makes a interesting nod to the fans of the show who were just like this or like that. It's pretty interesting. But MLP and real life aside, let's talk about episode 2, Las Vegas. There's a lot going on in this episode, and about like nearly 75 or 80% of this episode is flashback. Flashback to when both like Ray and Abby were just living peacefully. They were a good married couple, and they probably had like maybe 1 or 2 kids. They lived so peacefully, and even back then, before Mick winded up in prison, he was actually writing screenplays. Or at least he was trying to before he was sent off to prison in Boston, for whatever reason. But of course, both being Ray and Abby's anniversary, since they just got married, they decide to go on a road trip to Las Vegas to try and take a break and just enjoy the sights and the views. But before they could wind up doing much, they wind up receiving a call from Terry, who's literally in prison for just doing something that he never thought he'd do. What winds up happening is their relationship is so strong, and they're just thinking about their family and just how nice and how peaceful it is. Hell, even Abby winds up actually sometimes going along with what Ray does in the show. Or at least back then, before they actually had, I believe it was before Connor and before Bridge. Then afterwards, they wind up getting a call from Terry, who winded up going to prison all because he was dragged somewhere and arrested for certain felonies and charges and all that. So they wind up deciding to visit the quote-unquote whorehouse, as they wind up finding a female named London, as of course they tie her down and of course nearly F her up to try to get their heirloom back, which is their mother's ring. And of course, as Terry winds up, going on about his ring and just what it was like for him just when everything went wrong for him, we show that he actually has an early sign of Parkinson's disease, or at least what they call in the show the shakes. Well, it was referred to that in Walk This Way, but let's just get back to this. Of course, as we flash back to modern time, they all arrive at the bar they just bought a long while ago. And of course, they wind up honoring their lost loved ones, as of course Ray thinks about the time they arrive in Las Vegas and they decide to watch a boxing match where Terry is coaching an early version of Daryl? I don't know. It's hard to tell what happened with them. Or at least it's hard to tell with a lot of these stories and to see what happens next. Anyways, they wind up but anywho, they wind up meeting a client who's being posted up on TV, sort of a CBS fake equivalent of TMZ, which TMZ is already the scum of the earth anyways. Natalie, who winds up coming to Ray for help, and especially with the situation that's been happening between her and her husband, as he begins to try and pack up. But then her husband tries to come in and cause some trouble, which, of course, the both of them leave, and, of course, he decides that there'll be somebody to pick up her dog, because she needs that dog somehow, especially since her husband's a total dick. But anywho, he flashes back to Terry's wedding inside the restaurant, as, of course, the police officer who got invited to the place, that happens to be one of the Donovan members, actually winds up telling his newlywed wife about what he's done, and that gets what I think is Bunchy upset, as of course he winds up nearly beating the living snot out of the officer. But anywho, as Ray's down in the casino getting some beverages for their hotel, he winds up coming across Abbs, as of course she winds up on the ground having a seizure. As of course they rush her over to the hospital, and Ray explains that not too long ago they both winded up in a crash, but thankfully they're still alive even after all that. Natalie from earlier winds up actually getting her dog back and completely, literally shooting her husband to death, and winds up with the dog, as of course she asks him for some help trying to get rid of the evidence. And that, my friends, is where the episode ends. Conspiring a lot of these flashbacks all together, we're in for quite an interesting story, because not only did Abbs wind up going through a car crash, but she also winded up having a seizure. And it makes me kind of wonder whether or not her death is a possibility between something like a seizure, a big major one that nobody can recover from, and then there's the situation with them going through a car crash not that long ago. It makes you kind of wonder, still, what is the possible theory that Abby had died from? What was her cause of death? The theories could be a seizure, or suffering a major crash which could have caused her to die. There's many theories to all of this, but the mystery, my friends, is still growing. If anything is resolved by this point, hopefully we might wind up with a possible strong theory on what happens when, what happened to Abby. Plus, after the ending of this episode, I think Ray's back in the game. Helping clients, making sure they don't get into too much trouble, the good stuff. But yeah, I look forward to seeing what they talk about for next week's episode. Definitely the writers and producers are keeping us in the dark on what happened to Abby and why she died. So, let's hope for some more answers next week or future episodes from this point. But anywho, with that said, I'll see you guys next week for hopefully an all-new episode of Ray Donovan, and of course, sometime within the very near future, everything will flow out very smoothly. So, see you then.